welcome everyone to episode 3 of Bases and Brews with Ben and Brandon. This is the weekly podcast where we talk about baseball and beer. We stream the show live on twitch.tv/bases_and_brews every Friday, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. Come give us a follow over there, watch us live, interact with us a little bit. Or if you can't catch us live, go over to our YouTube, search for the channel Bases and Brews Podcast, and follow us on Twitter at Bases Brews to get news, updates about the podcast, etc. So let's get into it.
How you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you doing this week?
This week's been crazy, but I got apparently a really good looking beer for today.
Yeah.
What you got going? I gotta pour mine real quick.
All good. I have an IPA. It's by the 512 Brewing Company, which is in Austin. They call it Austin's Original India Pale Ale, which but it's very good.
Nice.
Definitely recommend.
So I like craft beer, so I always get these really weird ones. So tonight's delicacy is from Fruition Brewery. It's actually a brewery really, really close to me. It's a vanilla double tint imperial porter.
Okay. Going for the darker beer tonight?
Yeah. I do have I laughed at myself because when I went to pick this up, I was looking at the menu and the guy was like, "Oh, we just poured a new mango IPA," and I was like, I just had a mango IPA last week. So I got the porter and then I was like, fuck it, give me one of the mango, I'll try it later.
Nice.
So I've got one of those for later if I get tired of this.
Well, yeah, change it up. That would be a big change up.
That's kind of what I'm thinking. If this isn't so good or if I'm just not feeling it, I can go to something much lighter.
Yeah. But yeah, so I guess we'll get into the weekly news here.
Oh, that's so good. Sorry.
No, you're good. Porters are very hit and miss for me, so
yeah. See, I don't usually do porters or stouts unless they're craft like this, unless there's something special about them, or I'm a sucker for a good Guinness.
I mean, yeah, I'll always drink Guinness.
But I'm kind of the same way. If it's not, like I can't drink just any porter.
Yeah. There was a time completely off subject for baseball, on subject for beer, when I was in living in New York, where me and my one friend were just chilling at a bar, and the Guinness girls came, and they were just giving out free tap Guinness.
Bro, that sounds like heaven.
Me and my friend both got 4 free Guinnesses.
That literally sounds like heaven.
It was great. We didn't pay for anything, and 4 Guinnesses is a lot.
Shit, at a bar, that's a good $25.
Well, in New York, that's $40.
Are they really? You think?
Yeah.
I guess you're probably
it's
right.
About $10 for a draft beer, especially a heavy draft beer.
Yeah, I can see that.
But good night. But yeah, let's get into the news here. Big signing over in Kansas City, Salvador Perez, 4-year, $82 million, which seems like a lot for him. I mean, he's a really good catcher, but
and it sounds like from when I looked at his contract details, it sounds like all 82 is guaranteed.
Yeah, I believe that's correct.
Which that's a lot of money.
He's 30. He's probably the best player on that team. I mean, he's really good.
Fair.
But
yeah, but 20 mil a year good?
Yeah, he's very injury prone. And I don't know. We'll see. I I don't have a problem with teams locking up good players like that, but he's already 30, and it's a
I
lot of
don't
money to spend on a 30-year-old.
I don't know, but ages in a lot of sports are starting to trend upward again.
Well, true, but also a 30-year-old catcher
Okay, fair.
who gets beat to crap, and he's the catcher who like sticks his leg straight out when he's crouched in his crouch. He like sticks his leg out to the side.
It's okay. That means he's only got one bad knee. He could go for a little bit. He's just got to switch to the other side now.
Yeah, but that knee doesn't get as much protection. He gets blasted in the leg sometimes. But anyway,
that is quite a bit of money, though.
He's a really good hitter too. Like, having been an Indians fan my whole life, like he's been there since 2011, and he's beat the Indians up all the time.
Fair.
He's good, but yeah. I was just trying to look up.
Cubs.
He has a career.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Career 270 hitter.
It's not bad.
I mean, for a catcher,
that's pretty good.
Probably top tier, but yeah, I don't know. What were you gonna say?
More interesting than a big signing is a minor league prospect. Well, I guess he's a big league prospect, but still in the minors, gets popped with 21 pounds of meth.
Yeah, for the Cubs. Yeah, I don't understand this. And it was like in his equipment bag.
He had it in a Cubs duffel bag.
Yeah, with him, like carrying it with him.
So apparently, from the sounds of it, because I guess he had court this morning.
Okay, I didn't read too much into it. I just saw the headline. So
yeah, he was asked by somebody to bring that to, where was it, to Chicago, and he was given $500. His defense was he didn't know what was in there.
Okay,
but he knew what was in there. Like, it doesn't sound like he's got a great defense here, to be completely honest.
No, that's not. So claiming you don't know what's in the bag is not going to get you off of the charges.
Yeah, but it's not mine, I swear.
Right. Yeah, that was a crazy one. Like,
I've never heard of him.
For 500, I hadn't either, but I also don't know minor league systems that well. So, I didn't really look up how high of a prospect he was in their organization. I just know he was on track to be a professional player, but not like a star or anything. I
mean, he's been in the minors since 2014. Or, well, maybe 2015, because he was signed in 2014.
Right. I mean, depending on how old he was at the time, that would make him like 23 or 24.
It's not out of the realm.
So that's not too crazy. But anyway, yeah, that was just a weird story. Especially for $500. Like, do you really need $500?
I mean, he's a minor league player. They're not making that much.
True, but I'm pretty sure minor league minimum is like $40K, $50K a year. I'm gonna look it up really quick, but
I've honestly never looked at salaries for minor leaguers. I've always known that it was pretty low, especially comparatively. But I've never really cared enough to look up their actual numbers.
$700 a week is the minimum, so whatever that equates to for a season.
But that's only for the season, though.
Right. They don't get. Well, I don't think MLB players get paid in the off season either. But
but when you're making $300,000 in 6 months,
right?
It doesn't really matter. But when you're only making, $2,400 or $2,800 a month,
yeah,
that's basically what you're spending.
Well, but you also have to think that the team's putting them up in hotels, paying for all their food, like while they're playing. So it's not like
I guess
not spending a lot during this season.
It would depend on if they're actually doing that. I know they for the minor leagues, they would make people ride buses, and like they didn't actually have organized team stuff for them all the time.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know enough about minor league systems.
Maybe I'm just thinking like it's 1960 all over again, but I feel like that used to be a thing where like minor leaguers were just like they traveled together, but they weren't on like anything crazy.
I think they might take a bus because I think like minor league, you only play in your division, I'm pretty sure. So all the teams are fairly close. But I'm pretty sure they do like meals and like hotels and stuff like that is all done by the organization, but I could be wrong.
Oh man.
But yeah, I don't know. It's either way. I feel like if somebody tried to hand me a bag and say take it here, I would be like, no, not for $500.
I know, right? And apparently where he was coming from was notorious for having a drug cartel.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like he just, when you hear one thing, you're like, man, how does that happen? And then you start hearing everything else and you're just like, oh, how stupid could you possibly be?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a weird one. But on brighter news, freaking Shohei Ohtani over here.
He is going mad.
I just have in the news section his one game when he pitched this week, he also batted leadoff, and he struck out 5 in 4 innings pitching, and then he got on base 3 times.
You want to know what his batting average is right now in spring training?
It's probably over 400.
571.
Jesus.
His OPS is 1.7, so 1700.
That's insane. He's got 5 home runs. I know that.
And that's just his offensive stats.
Yeah.
That's the crazy part.
Yeah, that's not. If he does this for the whole regular season, he's got a good chance of being MVP.
But my question, though, and the reason I've always thought it was kind of risky going back and forth is how long can he do this?
Like for a career?
No, for a career and for the season. Like it's going to be interesting to see if he gasses out by the end of the year.
Yeah. I don't know about the season, but for a career, I don't think he stays a two-way player for more than like 5 years.
You think he gets switched to a DH at that point?
Yeah. And I mean,
that's fair.
He'll still be an incredible DH too. I think once they lose Pujols, I wouldn't be surprised to see him be the DH.
Has Pujols got that much longer?
I think he has. We looked this up last week. I think he still has this year, maybe next year. But I also saw in an interview this week that Pujols was like, "We'll see. I don't know if I'm ready to retire yet." So,
of course. The
dude's still batting like 290 and hitting like 30 home runs a year. Like,
so as much praise as he's gotten, I think he's one of the more underrated players of our generation.
Pujols?
Yeah.
I would agree with that.
Like, I think he gets a lot of praise, but I still, even with the praise he's gotten, I still think he might be a little underrated.
Part of it is the contract that he got in LA.
Yeah. It's just an old man contract, though. Everybody knew when he signed he wasn't going to fill that.
I mean, yeah, but I don't know. He isn't worth what he's getting paid right now.
That's the way I looked at it. So when he signed that, I figured, okay, he's going to have maybe 5 years of really good ball. He'd have 2 years of decent ball. And then the last 3 years, they were basically paying him for his production in the first couple years.
Yeah.
That's basically kind of how I figured that contract would work out.
Yeah.
And that's how I figure most 10-year contracts will work out, unless it's a super young player.
That's why I'm really curious to see what happens with Tatis Jr. Because he's only like 21, 22.
I think he's 21.
14-year contract.
Yeah, he's not going to fill that.
I mean,
maybe he maybe has a good 8 or 9 years where he's like really good, but there's no way he's getting that last like 5-6 years that is going to be of that same caliber.
Well, okay. Speaking, I'm going to skip down a little just to keep on that topic with Carlos Correa. So, Correa said this week in an interview that he got offered a 6-year, $120 million contract from the Astros. And he quote, says, I don't know. First offer was really low. If that's how they feel about me, I guess I'll go out, play, try to win another championship for the city of Houston, and then explore free agency. Unquote. So I don't understand how 6 years, 20 mil a year is too low for Correa.
I would have taken that.
I would have taken that easily.
Because that would put him at what, age 39 when he's done? Because he's 33 right now, right?
No. We just went over this. He's like 26.
Oh, that's right. I literally am looking at it right now. So 6 would put him at 32.
32, 33.
But then he could still get another decent contract at that point. It wouldn't be as big as what you would get maybe at like 28.
That's the only thing I'm wondering is if the money was good, but he wanted like a 9 or 10-year contract instead of a 6-year. That's the only thing I can think, because 20 mil a year for a guy like Correa is really good.
Yeah, so I don't know.
That's the only thing I can think is he wanted like a 9 or 10-year contract and just be good for the rest of his career. But I don't know.
But that's some pointed words though at the end there.
He's always been like that. He's kind of a dick. I really have never liked Correa, and I liked him even less after the cheating when he came out and was like, you guys didn't catch us, we won. Like very unashamedly was like, yeah, I'm glad we cheated. Like didn't take it back at all. Like he was probably the worst in that whole thing.
That's fair.
But anyway,
or contract news. Yeah. Gio Gonzalez retires officially.
Yeah, so
I just am done talking about Correa.
That's fine. Yeah, we were talking about this a little before. I guess he did not make the major league roster with the Marlins, and he has struggled the last few years to stay healthy and to pitch well. So it was time, but multi-time All-Star. He finished top 5 in Cy Young voting twice. Like he's a borderline Hall of Famer.
So I was never a huge fan, so I didn't really follow him much.
I just knew him when it was him in Strasburg in Washington, and they were just like they were the top 2 pitchers in baseball for a few years, and they were just back to back just destroying teams. And then both of them couldn't stay healthy and dropped off the map. I don't even know. Is Strasburg even still with Washington?
I think so.
I'm looking right now.
I think so. Yeah. I think he's been hurt.
He is still with Washington. He pitched last year in 2 games. Went 0-1 with a 10.80 ERA.
Remember when he was like the pitcher to have?
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, 2019 he went 18-6 with a 3.3 ERA. So
yeah, he's still the pitcher to have. I guess up until last year.
Maybe not. I mean, he might have been hurt last year too because he only pitched 5 innings in 2 starts, and
yeah, that's not a lot of work.
But yeah, I don't know. 112 and 59 for his career. That's crazy. But yeah, those guys were great together. So I'll be curious to see. Well, I guess he hasn't been there for a while, but I'd be curious. I'm curious to see what Strasburg will do coming back.
I'm honestly curious to see what a lot of people are how they're gonna perform this year, because there's gonna be fans in the stands. It's gonna be interesting to see.
Yeah. What else? The White Sox lost Eli Jimenez, who is very, very good for them. Very good young player. For 6 months. So basically, this season he ruptured his pec, which
That's
wow.
awful. Like that's. I've watched a video the other day of a guy lifting like on a bench and having it snap, and like the like spring that happens in your pec. Oh man, I could imagine how crazy that's got to feel. That's probably not going to be easy to come back from. Well, I mean, he'll be successful coming back, but I mean, just in general, the process is probably not very fun.
Yeah. Um, and then what else do we have? Was Chris Sale had another setback from his Tommy John surgery. I don't know. They didn't really say how serious it was, but it looks like he's definitely not going to be ready for the start of the year, and might be a month or two before he's ready to roll, if not more. So
Yeah, that's pretty
I
brutal.
don't know.
I
Yeah.
liked Chris Sale.
I hated him because he was a White Sox and he was unbeatable.
I don't know.
Literally, if Chris Sale was pitching against the Indians, it was just chalk it up as a loss. He was so good when he was in Chicago. I mean, he was really good when he went to Boston too, but he wasn't quite the same. But
So with Elroy Jimenez rupturing his pec, do you think that's how much do you think that's going to affect the White Sox this year? Because a couple of weeks ago we predicted that they were going to win that division.
I mean, he was 100% their starting left fielder. So like losing one of your starting outfielders can be rough because there isn't. I feel like there's not a lot of outfield depth in baseball right now, or at least from the teams that I watch.
Maybe good outfield depth. I was going to say
Right, right.
the Giants have like 4 left fielders right now, all
yeah,
of
I'm
which are
talking about
viable, like fill guys. Yeah, platoon guys, not.
I'm talking about guys who like could be the starter for the whole season. So it's definitely a loss, but I mean, okay, so he's only played for 2 years in the majors, but he was 4th in Rookie of the Year his first year, and then he won the Silver Slugger for outfielders last year. So like, it's a big loss.
Yeah, that is a huge. That's probably going to be a huge loss.
See, I think you said you thought they would win pretty easily the division.
If I'm not mistaken, I did say that.
I thought the Twins would be very close. So like, this could be enough of a loss in my mind to make the Twins win and the White Sox get the wild card. Because I think one of these two teams is going to be one of the wild cards.
Oof.
So, but yeah, that's just me. I don't think it'll be enough to like take them out of the wild card, but I think it's enough to make them lose a couple more games that they would have won.
That brings it a little closer, if not puts them one behind.
Right.
That's fair. I still think they're going to win that division, but I think it's maybe a last day of the season type of race.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting. It'll be really interesting to watch that play out and who they replace him with, because I really haven't looked that up at all. But I don't know. And then the last news thing is, I think it's the last one. Kind of jumped around. MLB is cracking down on pitchers for foreign substances on the balls. So, looking at a tweet from Jeff Passan, who's a baseball writer for ESPN. they're going to have compliance officers who are going to be in each dugout and clubhouse and everything. And they're going to be looking at balls before they go out, as well as like monitoring the pitchers in the dugout, I think is what they're doing. And then anything that comes out of play, like foul balls and stuff, they're going to be looking at. And if there's anything suspect, they're going to send them off to a lab, I guess.
Yeah, it's going to be, I think, what did it say? A third-party lab? Yeah, so it's not going to be by the MLB. It's going to be a separate lab.
Which makes sense. I mean, that's how they do steroid tests and drug tests for every sport. Like, none of those are done by the leagues.
There's nothing about this that I'm opposed to. If you're not cheating, you're good.
Right. The last one was spin rate analysis, so they're going to watch replays to see if, like, somebody's curveball goes from, like, I don't know what a normal spin rate is, but if it goes from, like, 15 rotations between the mound and the batter to, like, 25 halfway through a game, they're going to be like, okay, you're doing something.
That's fair.
I don't know if those are actual numbers. I just made those up, but yeah. So they're just going to be kind of watching that, which is a stat that's recorded now. Like spin rate on pitches is a recorded stat.
There are too many stats that are useful. I guess that's useful for pitchers.
That's useful for this a lot. Well, yeah. That's so guys like Trevor Bauer, who's admittedly kind of a nut job, but he's also damn good. This is like what I forget where he goes, but he goes to this like baseball clinic every off season, and that's what they do is they work on like spin rotation and stuff like that more than like mechanics. Like they work on how to get his changeup to spin less and drop off the table, or his fastball to spin more so it like moves in on a hitter as he throws it and stuff.
Yeah, all that stuff is crazy to me.
It is, but I mean,
like I'm a numbers guy, so I can understand when I see the numbers, but I would have never thought to look at something like spin rate to like actually benefit you.
Yeah.
It's just crazy to me. Some of these people that are thinking this up are much, much more advanced thinking than I am.
So apparently they do spin rate by RPMs. So just to throw this out there, I have this cool graph of Trevor Bauer. It just happened to be in the same tweet that we were looking at. But his spin rate on every single one of his pitches has gone up except his changeup, which has dropped off the table since the beginning of his career. It's kind of cool to look at. But that's the super nerdy baseball person in me talking to.
See, like, and those are numbers that I like to see.
Right.
But I just...
It's not one that you'd ever think about.
Yeah, it's just not something I would have ever thought to, like, use to benefit myself.
Well, I mean, that's the same, like, if you look at stats from whatever, even 5 years ago, nobody's talking about, like, launch angles and exit velocity. And now that's all hitters care about. Like
probably more fair to go to like 10 years ago for launch angle.
Yeah, but still.
But I get what you're saying.
Yeah. Now they have that broken down in like those slow-mo, like after the home runs hit, they go back and show the replay with like the
ball trackers and everything. Yeah. It's nuts. I mean, I kind of like that. I like seeing those. Do I really care? No, but it's interesting to see and compare.
The launch angle and exit velocity thing is kind of what's gone into like drop-offs in batting average and stuff like that. Because like now with analytics, people don't care if you strike out 150 to 200 times a season. Like, who cares if you bat 250 and hit 35 home runs? Nobody cares.
We'll get more into that here in a minute, because definitely I'm going to be bringing that up. But that should be it for all the just kind of recent news stuff that's happened in the last week or so.
Yep.
Now to get to the good topic, the one that we're here for.
The big topics.
Pace of play and the rules that they are implementing or not implementing in some cases that are trying to speed the game up.
Yeah. So, yeah, you sent me this article, which is very long, by the way.
Yes, so the
But
article we were referencing for anybody that might want to take a read, it's a great, great read.
It's a very long link, but
It is,
that's the article.
yeah, and anybody who might be listening, it's MLB can't wait any longer to fix its pace of play crisis by Tom Verducci, was a Sports Illustrated. Google it if you want more in-depth info to read it through it. It's an amazing read.
It was a really good article. But yeah, so you sent it to me if you want to start off with this and get into it.
So the overarching point he's trying to make throughout the article is that the game is getting longer and there's less action throughout the game less often.
Yeah, I think that's more what I took from it is because the games have gotten longer, but not by much. But it was the time between like balls hit and play was the thing that's really gone up.
Yeah, that one was definitely interesting. So from what he's saying, and I 100% believe this is the average game last season, which I would assume is pretty accurate to the season before, just because it was a shortened season. The games are still what the games are. Was 3 hours and 7 minutes to get a 9-inning game in. I don't find that to be too long. But what you were saying is the other big part of his thing is his argument in here is that there's just not enough action, basically.
Yeah. So yeah, we can scroll through for the exact numbers, but I think it was like 4 minutes between.
That's what I was.
4 minutes of actual time between balls hit and play, and then it was like 25 seconds, 24.9 seconds between each pitch, which is a long time when people have such short attention spans.
Yeah, I mean, to an extent, you're not wrong.
I see, but for me, I don't care because I'm watching other stuff too. Like, if they show it, I'm watching, fielders get in position and things like that, as well as just every single pitch. There's stuff between each pitch.
But, see, and someone like you or I that enjoy the game, we notice that, but someone who is just a very casual observer, they don't notice what's going on. I've always kind of said that baseball is kind of a smarter sport. Like the game makes no sense until you understand it, then it all makes sense.
Well, and he even talks about that in here, calling it a chess match, because baseball is such a thinking sport that there is so many moves that aren't necessarily moves to make the team better, but it's to kind of to throw off the other team as much as it, changing a pitcher to go lefty lefty, even if the left-handed pitcher might not be as good as the right-handed pitcher you took out.
There is a good degree of like mind games,
right? But my bigger issue is like when we're just talking about this and like watching things besides the pitcher is when you watch a game on TV, they don't necessarily show that. And he even mentions that in here.
That's true. They usually show the pitcher.
Yeah, they'll throw the pitch, they'll show that, and then they'll show the batter, they'll show the pitcher, sometimes they'll show the catcher, the manager, and then back to the shot. And it's like you could have shown, a wide view of the field, showing where people are lined up. You could show, like, explaining the game to people who are casual fans, I think would be something that would help that. But
I maybe don't. I actually don't really disagree with you there. The more you show, the better it is, because the more you can see.
Right. Which
But
is why going to games is way more fun for me than watching on TV.
ooh, that's an interesting take. I think going to games is more fun, but I prefer to watch a game on TV. Tell me how that. So I think the atmosphere of games is great, and you can get a little more info, like we're saying, by going to the game. But as far as just getting the angles and being able to actually see what's happening, I kind of like TV.
Fair.
Now, if I had to choose, I would definitely go to the game over watch it on TV. But
So I think baseball actually does a really good job, at least from the stadiums that I've been to. Baseball does a really good job of um, making people who are in person have a good experience. Whereas, like, the NFL could care less about people going to the game because all their revenue is in TV deals.
I don't
So,
enjoy going to football games.
right. It's not, I don't like
I don't think you get a good
games.
view. I don't think you get much on the way of explanation goes.
And to be clear, because of the camera angle, I mean, just the way the game's played, like everybody can be fit into one camera angle for the play. So like you can see everything happening. They're much better at replays than baseball. So like
Yes,
the TV product for football is way better than the TV product for baseball.
I would agree
But
with you on that.
which is why going to games for baseball I like better, because like I do agree with you that watching on TV is fun, and I if the Indians are playing, I almost always have them like on the TV in the background, even if I'm not really watching. But um, yeah, I've always preferred like going to games over watching if I have that opportunity.
Yeah, I guess I maybe I spoke out there, because I guess if you said, "Hey, here are tickets to tonight's game," I'm not going to be like, "Nah, I'm good. I'm just going to watch it at home." Like, I'm going to go to the game. But I also don't know if that's because I like the atmosphere better, or because I just understand the game well enough that I don't really need all the angles, but I like all the angles.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I don't disagree. I will say baseball more than any other sport. When I'm watching it, I go, man, I want to see a replay of that, and then they don't show a replay, and I'm like, just I just want to see what happened. Just show it.
Yeah.
Like I don't know if they like don't want to show up the umpires or what, but
That's it. That's exactly what it is. Or at least that would be
it's
my number one guess, that that's what it is. Is I would imagine they want to make sure that the ump doesn't look too bad, whereas I think in football, they don't mind making the refs look like idiots. Like they really don't. They'll show the replay like 30 times and they'll be completely wrong.
yeah, yeah, I agree.
But so in essence, they're trying to speed the game up. I wouldn't even say they're trying to speed the game up. They're trying to create more action. I think it'd be a fair way to put it.
Yeah, right. Yes, I agree.
Because everyone keeps talking about pace of play, but I think it's really more the action like in the game.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. And he did get into a little bit like rules that would change the game too much, as opposed to just for the sake of making or change rule changes that would not benefit the game. They're just trying to speed up the game, or I don't know how to phrase it, but basically they wouldn't help the game at all.
Yeah, there's no benefits. There's only a kind of deterioration of the game as we currently know it.
Yeah. And they did to we talked week one,
Yeah, it was
episode one, about some of the rule changes they're trying out in the minor leagues this year. There was 3 more brought up in this article that they suggested, but didn't get added to that grouping, that they might try next year or even later in the season or something. Which is, one was the pitchers wearing an earpiece instead of getting signs from the catcher. It would just be somebody would tell them and they could shake it off.
No. Actually, what it is I guess there's like a wristband or something with buttons that the catcher would wear.
Oh,
and it's like a buzz system. Like they would hit it and it would like ring once for fastball, ring twice for curve, whatever.
that would be kind of cool, actually.
So the only problem I see with this is, I don't know, maybe you can hide it better, because they didn't, obviously, it's not something they're doing. So there's no like actual implementation of this yet to see, but I would imagine that people are just going to watch the catcher's hands at all times, which they do already.
You can't as a hitter, right?
No, but if the purpose is to deter cheating, though, like if someone's sitting,
if the catcher puts his arms between his legs like he would be to put down a normal sign, he could put his both arms down there and turn the wrist toward him with the buttons and just push the button, and you wouldn't be able to see it from second, and you wouldn't be able to see it from the dugouts because his legs would be blocking it.
Maybe. I don't know. I just don't see this. Like, it sounds cool in theory, but I just don't see it having the desired effect, which might be why they decided not to go with it this year until they can kind of iron it out.
Yeah. I put in here that I'm calling this the anti-Astros rule. Just to throw it out there.
That's so good.
More sign stealing and cheating.
Oh, that's so good.
But yeah, the other one is a maximum number of pitchers allowed on a roster, which they actually did this last year. It was like a ridiculously high number. It was like 16 pitchers or something. They want to make it like 11 or 12.
I mean, what is the average number of pitchers held on a team?
13 or 14.
So you're really only potentially dropping your pitchers by like 1 or 2. I don't see this making a huge difference. And I honestly don't see this actually making any real impact in the speed at which the game is played or the amount of action in said game. You just have less to work with.
I mean, the whole point of the proposed rule would be that you wouldn't make as many pitching changes if you had less pitchers, because you want to save your pitchers. But I just don't know if that's how it would work.
I don't think it would work that way. If the pitcher
is struggling or he's over his pitch limit, you're going to pull him whether you have an extra guy or not.
Yeah, you're going to figure that out down the road. Right now, you need to get somebody in there. You're going to put somebody in. So I'm with that.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
The last one was a 17-second pitch clock on pitchers, and then batters can't call timeout under 10 seconds on that pitch clock. I'm fine with this one, honestly. I might make it 20, but like, they tried to do this, 5 years ago? They put a pitch clock and just nobody followed it.
Well, and they didn't enforce it.
Right. The clock would hit 0 and like the pitcher would just be getting on the rubber, and they made it like a 25-second clock too.
Yeah.
So
I don't like this.
They have to have some sort of enforcement in the game. Like, if the pitcher hasn't thrown the pitch under the clock, they get a ball or something.
It would have to be a balk. That's what everything default.
But if no one's on base, then
I guess
for them to follow the rule. I don't know. There has to be something in the game, or I don't know, like $1,000 fine for every time you go over the clock or something. I don't know what the rule would be, but there has to be some sort of enforcement that would make people follow the rule. Because if you just do this again, there's no reason for people to follow it.
So I'm okay with part 1 of this, but I'm not okay with part 2 of this.
Well, okay. So they did say in the rule, I didn't put it in here, but they do say that, like, for emergencies, they can still call timeout. Like, if
that doesn't change my thought on it.
Why?
So I like that a batter can freeze a pitcher, just like a pitcher has always been able to freeze a batter by walking off the mound. Granted, they're getting rid of that stuff.
Right. Neither can do it now.
I don't know. I don't like that you have basically 7 seconds to decide whether or not you need to readjust yourself and recollect yourself. As a hitter, sometimes that's huge, just being able to take a deep breath or two and get back in the box. Yes, it adds some time, but it could exponentially add to your actual balls hit.
I also don't know exactly when this clock starts either. Like, does it start when the pitcher gets on the mound and the batter's in the box? Does it start as soon as the catcher catches the last pitch? Like,
maybe I just don't like it because there is no clock.
If it's 17 seconds from when the pitcher's on the mound and the batter's in the box, then that's way more than enough time. Like 17 seconds from when both people are set, like that's a huge amount of time.
That's fair.
So I don't know. Either way, it's not happening right now, but yeah, I don't know. I'm fine with the clock. I just whatever. I just agree with the whole point of this article, which is there needs to be more action in baseball.
Overarching, I agree as well.
Right. Yeah, broad brushstrokes here. I agree with that. How they get there, I don't always necessarily agree with. But
I very much disagree with a lot of it when it's how to get there. But I agree that there does need to be a change.
To be clear, I don't really have a better way to do it.
I do.
I don't. How?
Actually make baseball players play baseball.
Well, yeah, but
make them actually hit. Try not there's so much. Okay, we'll get into this when we get into like some of the other stuff, but there's a lot that as a player they could do. I feel like baseball has actually, where the athleticism and the actual talent has gotten much better, I think the quality of baseball played has actually gotten much worse.
Yes. And for the most part, I agree with you.
And I think that is a huge factor into why some of these games are so boring. It's not because they don't have the ability, it's because they just don't play like they used to. And I know that's part of the analytics and some of that, but just in general, if some of these guys like trying to eliminate the shift, an easy way as a hitter to make the shift invalid, hit the other way. They're going to do that to you. Yeah.
3 episodes now,
yeah.
But yeah.
It's a reoccurring thing.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with you.
And I think that's a big problem with some of this is just, I think the overall quality of baseball played, even though these guys are freak athletes compared to guys like in the 80s, in a lot of cases, not all cases, obviously. Sure. I think that's the big difference then to now is it's all about the big one shot and they're forgetting about the actual fundamentals of baseball.
That's what I was going to say is that fundamentals are the thing that's gone away. Like hitting the ball the other way, hitting line drive. Like this goes back to our launch angle talk we were kind of getting into is, hitting a line drive instead of hitting the ball, 35 degrees to get a home run every single time, because then you just fly out 80% of the times you hit the ball. Like it's all about hitting fundamental. Like 90% of the league can't even bunt anymore. Like watching players try to bunt right now is hard to watch because they can't do it.
So
it's impossible.
The fact that there are pitchers, and I am a firm believer, I think we're going to get into this in a little bit about the DH. You know what? Well, let's just get into it right now. There does not need to be a universal DH. There's 2 reasons. I like the fact that both leagues play with just a slightly different set of rules. I like the fact that when you have the World Series, every other game, basically one team gets an extra hitter. But every other game, you get to take away a hitter from the other team. I actually kind of like that. But it does pain me when I hear talks and like interviews from people on the radio that are at spring training and pitchers can't bunt. Like,
right, that's all you're there for.
You're not supposed to actually hit unless you're one of the rare guys that actually can swing. Yeah.
Unless you're Ohtani, you shouldn't be hitting.
Like, your whole job as a National League pitcher is to be able to bunt on the offensive side. If you occasionally get both cheeks into one and you get a nice double or whatever, cool. But your job traditionally in baseball for that is to just bunt. You don't even have to get on base, just bunt. I guess obviously unless nobody is on, but typically you do everything you can, obviously, to try and get somebody on before your pitcher.
Right, yeah. You never want the pitcher to come up with the bases empty.
Yeah, that's like the worst thing that can happen. I don't care how many outs you've got, even if you've got no outs, that's still like the worst thing that can happen.
But okay. Because I'm anti-pitchers hitting, you're kind of making my point is that pitchers can't even bunt anymore, which is all they're good for. It's so boring to watch a pitcher try to hit. It's an easy out. It's a guaranteed out. And every time they come up, except for like 2% of the time, it's so boring. This goes back into the trying to get more action. Having pitchers hit makes so much less action. Once every 9 hitters, you're not going to get a hit.
That is only if the pitcher isn't good.
They're all bad. If you take out Ohtani, the best hitting pitcher bats like 110.
But the problem is then you replace that guy with the guy that is going for launch angle because your DH is your biggest bat. He's the guy that's either it's feast or famine. And
I don't disagree, but even the feast or famine guys,
I'd rather see the small ball played. It's a personal preference on that, and I know it's not a widely expressed one.
I like small ball. I'm all about bunting and stealing and all that, but you don't get that with pitchers.
That's the whole point.
Get the sack bunt maybe once a game as a pitcher, and they're never going to steal if they are on base. So like you're losing that. At least DHs, even if they are swinging for the fences, they're at least putting the ball in play.
I don't know. Maybe it's just the purist in me, and honestly, maybe it's just because I've grown up my entire life watching National League ball.
I mean, again, that is what it's going to come down to: is you're a National League guy, I'm an American League guy, and like that's just what we've grown up with.
I've always enjoyed watching pitchers hit. There's just something about it. It adds comedy to the game.
I don't want comedy. I want baseball.
I love it.
I want somebody who's competent. I don't want someone who's worse than me if I were to go up there.
Okay, let's be real. If most pitchers are still better than I am.
I feel like if I took batting practice for like a week, I feel like I could hit better than a pitcher. Maybe not right now, but 6-7 years ago.
I don't know. Like,
I can pitch better than a pitcher, so I could never be a major leaguer.
Yeah,
so
but I don't know.
I think I could bat
against major league guys.
I think I could bat 100 or better. 1 out of every 10, I think I could hit and play.
Okay, fair.
Not 1 out of every 10 pitches. 1 out of every 10.
No, I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying. I don't know. This is just something that I know that it's going to happen at some point. There's going to be a universal DH. It's just going to be the way the league is.
Probably going to be next year, honestly.
Yeah, no matter how irrational it is, I will fight for not having a DH just because I enjoy it. If you had a universal DH, you would never have a big sexy home run.
I'm good with that.
I'm not. Did you see that home run? Bartolo Colon's only home run. It was so great to watch. And maybe that's part of it is because pitchers are typically bad. bad, like really bad when it comes to the offensive side. That when you see a pitcher go like, actually have a couple hits in a game because they pitched pretty well and they actually helped themselves, I find that to be pretty cool. I actually enjoy that.
Yeah, but that happens once a season.
No, it doesn't happen once a season.
I'm sorry, not in the league, but for each pitcher.
I don't know. I'm a Giants fan, and we've had some pretty good hitting pitchers over the years. So maybe I'm just a little spoiled and biased on that part. I'll admit that. But I think it would happen more than once. Trying to think. 32. Maybe you're right. Maybe only once a season.
Hit game for a pitcher.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, I'm trying to think of like overall how many starts they'd get. Yeah, you actually were probably right.
It's just, I don't know.
Maybe the average pitcher, that's it. I mean, we had a pitcher that was literally hitting like 5 bombs a year.
Yeah. A monster.
But see, this is all kind of interesting though, because it's all based on where you grew up, who you watched.
Yeah. And I mean, I watch National League from time to time. It's not like I only watch the Indians. Like, I'll watch other games, but yeah, I just, it's never, watching pitchers hit has never interested me.
I've always found it funny.
Okay. When you do interleague, the pitchers treat it like a joke. Like,
oh yeah,
they don't do shit. They're just walking up there to have fun. Like,
well, especially American League pitchers. They're like, man, I'm probably not going to get to do this for another, year. So fuck it, let's just go have some fun.
Especially when, before 3 years ago, where interleague play was like, you do like whatever it is.
Wasn't it like
5 series?
Yeah, I was going to say it was like 3 series or 5 series.
It used to be like 2 or 3. Because the Indians always played the Reds home and away. You do like a close rival, and then home and away, and then you do like one other team, either home or away. You don't play them both.
That's fair, because I feel like the teams rotate every like 4 years, basically.
Yeah, that's what it used to be. Now they do like 5 or 6 series against the opposite.
Yeah.
League. But
all right, I've ranted enough about a DH. It's something I'll never come off of, but I know it's gonna happen.
Leading up to this, that you and me were never gonna agree on this, but yeah, I am vehemently for universal DH. You're very against it, but
I'm gonna lose that battle. Like, it's happening.
I was surprised it didn't happen this year.
Well, they had it during the shortened season.
Yeah, which is why I was more surprised it didn't happen this year. But after the CBA, I would almost guarantee they'll have it next year.
I was surprised.
Yeah, which is something we will talk about, is the CBA and potential strike for next year at some point. Not this week. But yeah, did you have anything else about that article?
Nothing specifically about that article. I just would recommend anybody that's curious, go check it out, because it was a good read.
Yeah, if you want to, if you're interested in baseball, definitely go check that out, because it was very interesting to read. But yeah, so the other thing we wanted to talk about was the rules from last season and the shortened season that they implemented, that and whether we would be interested in seeing them done permanently or not. So we already talked about the universal DH, obviously. That was another thing about it, is that this week, kind of news, but I threw it in here, was that the Diamondbacks' #1 pitching prospect is going to need Tommy John surgery after hurting himself hitting.
If he's a prospect, he's young. As long as the surgery goes good, he'll probably, honestly, be better off after.
Yeah.
I hate to say that, but Tommy John surgery anymore is actually better for people, if you haven't had it already, than...
Yeah, if you have to have multiple, it is not a good thing.
No, but I know a lot of people, college players and stuff, that almost everybody is having Tommy John surgery these days. Like, that doesn't surprise me. That doesn't scare me until you get into the multiples, like you said.
Yeah. But
yes, I know that backs up your point that they need a DH so that stupid pitchers don't hurt themselves while they're hitting.
That is why I put it in here.
I know it's why you put it in there.
Oh, actually, I take it back. Apparently, he doesn't need Tommy Johns anymore. He actually fractured his forearm hitting. So it's not Tommy John surgery. It's
okay. A fractured forearm is more worrisome than a Tom. Honestly, that's more worrisome than Tommy John,
especially for a pitcher.
Yeah, well, because that happened to Madison Bumgarner with the Giants in 2018, I think it was. On the last day of spring training was his last spring training start, or no, it was just his last spring training start. Took one right to the hand. It's a wrap. He missed. Yeah. Oh God, I want to say he missed over half the season, if not longer. Yeah. I can't remember off the top of my head exactly how long he missed, but he missed a good bit of time, and it was all just unlucky. I mean,
as a pitcher, you put so much stress on your arm that it has to be 100%, or you shouldn't be throwing because you're just going to make it worse. Like it's pitching really screws your arm up.
I'm dumb. That's right. I remember. He didn't get it. He didn't hurt his hand hitting though. Fuck. Forgot. He was on the mound. He took a comebacker.
Okay.
Literally, I said that and I was like shaking my thinking wait, no, didn't that happen when he was pitching? Wait, did I just make a totally invalid argument? But even still, I don't think there should be a universal DH, but it's gonna happen.
Yeah. Okay.
Expanded playoffs. Yeah. How do you feel about the expanded playoffs?
I'm torn on this one because I don't like the NBA style where everybody gets in, but I do love postseason baseball, and more of it is a good thing too. So I would say in general, I'm against it, but if it happens, I wouldn't be super opposed because I do love postseason baseball more than just about any other thing in sports.
I actually have something I like more than postseason baseball. We'll get to that a little at the end, just because it's not relevant to this at all. But I'm torn on this too. I'm very much of the mind of the more teams you let in, the less the playoffs actually mean.
Agreed.
If 20 teams get in, well, you just got to be a top 60% team and you're good.
Yeah. Well, that's what happened. I think last year at least one team got in that had a losing record.
Okay, the Giants were not as bad as I'd like to say, but they were right on the fringe for one of the extra playoff spots, and that surprised the hell out of me.
Yeah. Yeah, they were right there. I was trying to pull up the standings, but either way, I just don't.
So
it doesn't matter.
For me, it cheapens the playoffs to an extent. I'm not a huge fan of doing that. But at the same time, as a baseball fan, like you were saying, playoff baseball is a ton of fun to watch.
Yeah.
Even if it's a win or lose one game, I'm okay with that.
Now, I will say this. If they don't want to expand the playoffs, I really want the wild card as it sits now to be a 3-game series. I think you and me might have talked about this, but I hate the 1-game wild card. It's so against everything baseball stands for.
I like the wild card.
Nothing else in baseball is 1 game.
And you're 100% right.
The series. I hate that it's a 1-game winner go home. Because there isn't baseball is unlike any other sport. Baseball is that one sport where any team can win any night. Like, you could have a bad night. The other team could get 2 lucky home runs and win a game or whatever. Like, it's I like series. I don't want it to be a 5 or a 7. I just want a 3-game normal series.
I'm not a fan. I actually really like the 1-game winner go home. Because it's not one of your main teams. It's for the last spot in the playoffs. Like, if you're in that position, then you should be on like a last chance.
Fair.
This is what you got.
It also does, though, if you do a 3-game, it benefits the teams that did get there by winning their division, because you do get time to rest and you're guaranteeing that your number 1 pitcher is going to be ready to go. Because otherwise, it's, I think, 3 games after the end of the season, or 3 days rather, 3 or 4. So like, there's a chance you could not have your number 1 starter ready to go for the game 1.
I mean, I would rather them still do the 1 game, but then give them ample time to rest up. Give them like 4 days, 5 days before the rest, after the wild card.
Oh, see, I don't like that. See, I want the wild card team to have that
disadvantage.
They had to throw their number 1 pitcher on the wild card series, and so they don't have their number 1 pitcher going.
But what you're saying, if you go to a 3-game series, their number 1 is going to be ready for the next series, or for the first actual playoff series.
Fair, but
so
they'll have already all pitched. I get what you mean, but they would have had to go on a 3-game series and then go straight into a 5-game, so they're still at a disadvantage versus the team that got to rest for 4 or 5 days.
I mean, if your guys are out there, maybe it is a slight advantage, but I don't think it's that much of an advantage going from a 3-day to a 3-game series from a 1-game series.
Yeah, I don't know. I've just always disliked the 1 game just because it's not. Nowhere else in baseball is there a 1-game series, so I've just always wanted it to be best of 3. But
I mean, and I understand that. That's fair. But it also adds more games to those players, and they're already kind of in whispers talking about wanting to reduce the amount of games this season, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, there has.
I don't think they're anywhere near making anything like that happen.
No.
But I think they're trying to drop it down to like 140.
Yeah, that's the one I've heard the most is 140.
So I don't know on this one. Because it does give you coverage though too. So one thing we're not looking at, we're both looking at the games themselves from a marketing perspective. Who would you say is the best player in all of baseball?
Mike Trout.
I bet you if you ask somebody on the street, they would say Tatis or some of these younger guys, because baseball doesn't market players that are on bad teams 100%. or mediocre
we talked
teams.
About that a little bit when we were doing our betting when we talked about Mike Trout winning MVP.
Yeah, like I think that's a big problem, and I think expanding the playoffs just to play devil's advocate, because I don't really like it, but just to go that side, could get some exposure for players that maybe otherwise might not get it.
Yeah, I agree with that. The issue with that is you run into kind of how the NBA does it, where you have like 4 games in a day, and you're not going to watch the late night ones anyway, which is what happens to the West Coast teams as it is. So,
right.
Which is where all the good players are. Tatis, Trout.
At the moment,
all the Dodgers. Dodgers and Padres.
Yeah, the Dodgers and Padres. So I think we're both kind of like, I don't know. I think we're both in agreement that neither one of us really like.
I don't really want it, but if they do it, I won't be like super upset about it.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much where I'm at.
1 or 2 teams. I don't want it to be like 15. What is there? 15 teams. I don't want it to be like 10 teams from each side or anything. Yeah. I want it to be.
Well, I mean, it's got to mean something, right? Because the best team is usually going to win anyway. So, I mean, at least if you're going to do it, have the best teams there. You don't need the extras, in my opinion. But I could, honestly, I'm not going to throw a fit if they decide to expand it permanently.
Yeah, I agree. The next one, which they are keeping for this year, is the runner on second base at the start of every extra inning. I hate this rule.
Thank you. I'm not alone.
Dumbest fucking rule ever.
I don't like this. It just it again takes away the fundamentals of baseball.
Yeah.
We're not going to make you get someone in scoring position. We're just going to put someone in scoring position for you. Yeah. Like I'm not a fan of that. Maybe in rare instances for double headers, which don't happen very often, just so that they're not playing like 2 13-inning games back to back. Like that would kill both teams.
Yeah, that's fair.
But outside of that, very like maybe 10 days a year, I don't like that.
Yeah, no, I've never liked that idea, is because of what you said. They're not earning it. Like, not to mention, I know most people probably don't watch it when it goes crazy long, but like, I think it was 2 years ago, the Indians played an 18-inning game, and I was freaking glued to my TV for the extra innings. Like, it was so intense, and it gets that playoff feel where like every pitch matters when you get to extra innings, and I love it. But
I love extras.
I also get how, again, going back to pace of play, how Major League Baseball hates it.
Yeah. Well, my biggest thing is I call extra inning games free baseball.
Right.
You go to a game, you pay for 9 innings. That's what you're paying for when you go to a game. You get a game that goes 12 innings, you basically just got a game and a half.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, I agree. I always liked extra inning baseball, but like Major League Baseball hates extra inning baseball. So,
well, because and you know why? I can tell you exactly why. Because typically, it's usually a pitcher's duel. Usually, that's what happens in a long extra inning games. It's just a bunch of pitchers duels.
True.
Both
it's
teams
rare that you go into extras where it's like 6-6 or something.
And the reason that it's rare is because like one team would have to go ahead every inning to create the action, and then the other team would then have to reciprocate the next half inning, which I bet you if you look back, there's probably a couple games a year that are like that. But overall, it's typically, I doubt there's numbers on it, but I would bet a healthy portion of money that most extra inning games are more pitchers duels.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's rare that it's a higher scoring game that goes deep into extras.
So that's kind of why I think MLB hates extra inning games, because it's completely opposite of what they want. They want the ball flying out of the park. They want people on base, people stealing.
Yeah. Well, right. And the game just goes longer, which they think is the problem, not action.
Yeah. So I think the people around baseball are like Verducci, who point out how little action is in baseball. But I think MLB as a whole is looking at just our game takes over 3 hours. Yeah. We need to cut that down, even though I don't think that's the case.
No, I agree. And yeah, I mean, we talked about that at length with that article, but yeah, it's much more about the length of time between the action than it is about the actual length of the game. You want to start the next one? I'll be right back.
Yeah. So next one is pitchers have to face a minimum of 3 hitters. Yes. And me personally, I am okay with this. Well, no, I take that back. Scratch that. I did not say that. I'm not okay with this. I like small ball. Me and Sports talked a little bit earlier that we really enjoy baseball as a whole, small ball, and all of that. And I think by forcing a pitcher to face 3 different hitters, that you lose some of that gamesmanship, some of that chess match. And I don't personally like this. But I will caveat what I'm saying by, as a Giants fan in the early 2010s, we literally, I feel like, used our bullpen to perfection on our World Series runs. We had such a deep bullpen with so many like specialists that with this rule would not allow any of those guys to really flourish like they did.
Yeah. I'm mostly against this one too. I just the lefty matchup is such a like staple of baseball, and when it comes to relief pitching, and matchups with relief pitching is such a big deal that I never understood when they implemented this one.
Yeah,
it didn't really make any sense besides the length of the game again and how many pitching changes they wanted.
Which I don't. Like I said, I'm not a fan. I like that chess match, and this to me just completely demolishes that.
Yeah, I agree with you.
It basically means that, like, with this rule in place, there's no even real reason to limit how many pitchers you have on a roster, because there's only so many pitchers you can put in a game anyway, unless they're just getting destroyed. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree. I'm not a fan of this one, but they did keep it for this year, so I wouldn't be surprised if this one gets rolled back at some point in the near future, like next year or the year after. But we'll see.
See, I'm optimistic that is the case, but deep down, I have a feeling that it's not going to change. Since they've gotten it in, I don't think they're going to be able to pull it back out.
I understand that. The only reason I'm saying they might is because with the CBA next year, I think a lot of the players don't like this rule either, especially the relief pitchers.
Well, I guarantee you the managers don't like this rule.
Yeah.
Like as a whole, I would almost guarantee you 90% of major league managers hate this.
I think in that article, like right at the beginning, I don't know. Now I'm trying to find it. Anyway, I don't know. But it was, I think, Joe Torre, who works in the commissioner's office now, was like, this is the dumbest rule baseball's ever added or something like that.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me.
But yeah, I don't know. I hope that one goes away.
I do too.
Next one, 26-man rosters, 27 for doubleheaders. They kept this one as well. It's basically one extra player.
I don't really care.
No, that's fine.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to have a few extra guys without having to option people constantly, I'm okay with this.
Like they did it last year, so you could have that extra guy if someone goes down with COVID. But
yeah,
honestly, I'm fine with this. No, I don't care.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't really care either, because making the rosters bigger isn't gonna benefit you in a great way. It's not like you can load up with an extra like 3 or 4 pitchers, because with the 3-hitter limit, you can't really use them all, even if you have them.
Yeah, that's fine. And then 7-inning doubleheaders they also kept for this year, which I actually didn't realize they kept that one.
I didn't realize they had kept it. I knew they had it for last season, but I didn't know they kept it.
Yeah. So, kept for this year, which kind of goes to what you were saying about not wanting to go super long for doubleheaders and wear players down. But, like, this is a normal full season, so I don't really understand. I don't know.
So, if having to face 3 hitters as a pitcher before you can be pulled is the worst rule that Major League Baseball has ever put in, I think this is a close second. These guys are professional fucking athletes, and dropping... Okay, so my overarching thing with the way baseball works and marketing baseball, I think MLB does a not so great, I'll be nice and go not so great job of marketing their players and their game, just from a marketing standpoint.
100%.
I think baseball is plenty fine the way it is. I don't think shortening the game to 7 innings, making all these random rule changes that really don't well, they greatly affect the game, but overall don't really change the game.
Yeah.
I don't think that gets you new fans. I don't think someone watches a game. If someone's going to watch your game for 3 hours, they're going to watch it for 2.5. But there's no guarantee that anybody's going to watch your 2.5-hour game any more than your 3-hour game.
Right.
Because if someone doesn't understand the sport, they're not going to watch it. They don't care.
Agreed. And I think that's the biggest thing is like, I mean, I kind of mentioned it a little bit earlier, but like showing different camera angles, it does show the field, explaining why people are positioned the way they are, like explaining the game. I could see it being annoying for people who are like big baseball fans, maybe, but to explain it for new people or people who are casual fans to really get them into the game, I feel like would go way more than any of these rule changes.
I 100% agree. So the broadcasters that do the video and audio for the radio and the actual TV out here are fucking amazing for what I grew up with. Kruk and Kipe on TV they're as much giant baseball as any player or any owner on the roster. And what makes them so good is not that they just broadcast the game and they talk about the game, is they were both former players and they explain why somebody is doing something. And as someone who knows the game, I kind of understand that just instinctively. Like, you see someone in a kind of funky count, you kind of know what the pitcher's thinking for the most part.
Yeah.
Like the general idea of what he's going to try and do. You're not going to be able to call his pitch, but you'll kind of understand when runners are on base. You kind of understand, but what they do is they actually go, no, this guy is stealing here because they had whatever. They had 2 outs. Guy was at a full count. That's just what you do. And they would explain that. They do a fantastic job of making it so that anybody picking up the game, anybody just turning on a Giants game, can watch and kind of understand what's going on, and maybe the knowledge that they got piques their interest a little bit more. And I think that's way more valuable, is having good broadcasters and people that can explain the game to people that don't understand it, than just shortening the game overall.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, I don't really even have anything to add. That, yeah, it's so much more important than just showing a replay of a pitch over and over. Like showing the positioning, the rules, the way people are lined up and why they're lined up that way is so much more important to me.
Well, yeah, like is it hold on. Mike Krukow. He was a former pitcher for the Giants.
Yeah.
And even when a pitcher is pitching, when they show those like number graphics and they're just showing the pitcher, the way they talk about there not being any action. If you constantly have action, where is there a time for someone to explain what is going on to people that don't understand it?
True.
Now maybe that time is a little long in some cases for the action, but I don't know. That's really my big overarching thing with this whole pace of play. I just think people don't understand the game, and that's the problem with baseball right now.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, part of that is that, like, interest, Jesus, is at an all-time low right now. Like, I think it was in the article, yeah, attendance has gone down each of the last 4 years, and like it's been on a downward slope for the last like 15 years. Like, and then, like, if you ask kids now, like, what they're gonna play, it's always basketball or football. Like, no, there's so few kids playing baseball. There's like kids leagues shutting down and stuff, and
it's 100% true.
getting kids interested is very important because it's so hard to keep a sport popular if you're not getting a younger audience in.
And I think that comes back to more of a marketing issue than an actual X's and O's game issue.
Mm-hmm.
When you're watching TV, I don't watch a ton of just like normal TV. I tend to watch more like YouTube videos where I can pick what I'm watching.
Same.
But people that watch general TV, they see ads with Steph Curry and LeBron James and all this stuff. You don't see a ton of ads with Fernando Tatis Jr., granted he's young, with Mike Trout, they're not like really promoting these guys and getting them out there like some of the other sports do. And I think that's also a big issue.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you can even tell they don't do it well because, like, I think Mike Trout was a Subway spokesman for like a couple of years. And like in every commercial he was in, like he had to wear his uniform because it's like nobody's gonna recognize who this dude is if he's not in his uniform.
That's what I mean.
You could get LeBron and Curry wearing whatever polo shirts, and everyone's like, "Oh yeah, I know exactly who that is."
I think if they want to get fans, the big ways to do it are make sure you got decent broadcasters, which I know MLB can't really control, but I think that makes a huge difference. Because that's by the club basis. They hire whoever they got to broadcast. But work on your marketing. Don't worry about shortening the game and doing all these crazy rule changes until you can at least market your players appropriately.
Yeah. And I mean, we've talked about that maybe every episode, if not definitely the last two.
And we'll probably talk about it all the time because they're so bad at it.
Everyone knows it too, even the people in charge.
That's
just bad.
That's the worst part.
Yeah.
Is like, it's not like it's something that nobody knows and we're just in the in.
Right.
Like they know that they're bad at it and they're still bad at it.
Yeah. I almost wonder, I had someone bring this up to me once. I don't want to get too off topic, but like, I guess we're still on topic, but baseball players more than any other sport look like normal people. Like basketball players are all really tall. Football players are all jacked for the most part. I mean,
or they're just big. They literally occupy a big amount of space.
Baseball players can look like there's overweight baseball players, there's short baseball players. Like if somebody comes up to you and goes, "I'm a professional baseball player," it's like, okay. Like they're gonna have, for the most part, are gonna have like a normal body type. Like
if they're semi-fit,
who are jacked,
I can see it.
Insane. So like part of that I feel like is that problem where like you're not gonna recognize a guy on the street or in a commercial without, some crazy, without their uniform on, because they do just look like a normal person. And maybe marketing would obviously help that if you marketed your players instead of your league. But part of it is like that recognition where you're not going to recognize a guy who doesn't have isn't 6'6" or whatever.
Well, I mean, to be fair, like if you just saw a backup, center for the Texans walking down the street, you're not going to know that. You're going to be like, man, that dude is huge. But you know what I mean?
He's a professional football player, but I'd be like, the dude's probably going to be like 6'5", like 300 pounds, and be like, holy shit, that guy's huge.
Yeah,
like he's got to be some sort of.
But at the same time, your marquee players are the people you need to literally throw in people's faces. It's what every other sport does. And
well, even if you watch like when the NBA does like Christmas games, they're never like the Lakers taking on the Warriors. They're like LeBron James and Anthony Davis go against Steph Curry and Klay Thompson. Like, they don't even name the teams. Everybody already knows what teams those guys play for. Like, it's all about the players. And baseball barely even mentions players when they're like promoting the game of the week or whatever. They're like, this team against this team.
And it's small stuff like that I think is what's really hurting the game more so than the game itself.
Yeah. I completely agree.
Like, all these rule changes, they keep coming every year. There's always something new they want to try, something new they want to do. And every year I'm just shaking my head like, can we just leave baseball alone? And can you just figure out how to like put these people in front of the masses? Like, we have like baseball, you wouldn't think it, but baseball has some of the best athletes in the world playing.
Well, and here's the other thing. Like, they at least are starting to do this, but it's on weird, obscure platforms. Like they do these, I forget what they're called now. In the cage with, like, it's like in the batting cage, but I think they call it in the cage with whatever player.
With whoever it is, yeah.
And it's basically like a one-on-one interview with a player where the fans can ask questions through, like, I think it's usually on like Bleacher Report or like MLB.com. Okay. And it's like, awesome. That's super cool. Except that it's on a thing where only people who are already following the MLB are going to watch it. It's like you're not putting it out there on ESPN.
Okay, so I'm a baseball fan, and I didn't even know that show existed. Or those shorts existed.
I think it's on Bleacher Report because I get notifications on my phone. It's like, send questions in for this player because he's going to be in the cage tomorrow or something, or like in an hour or something like that. So I think it's Bleacher Report, but
that's the big.
Or it might be through the MLB.com app.
But that's the big thing is, like, I'm a fan and I didn't even know that happened. Like, someone who's never really watched baseball or maybe just someone who's just barely getting into baseball. If I don't see that, granted, I don't do exhaustive like searches through all the sports stuff to see what's going on.
Yeah.
But someone who definitely doesn't do that is never going to see that. And I bet you they're pretty good.
I've watched a few when they have like players I know or care about. And yeah, they're usually pretty interesting because they go like, it's not just about baseball. Like, they answer questions about everything.
Yeah, it's about like who cool. They actually are.
Right. You get to actually know the players. But yeah, again, they're not marketed to people who don't follow baseball. It's like there's this select community of baseball fans. And if you're not part of that community, it's like, we're not really looking to bring in people.
Yeah, that's fair.
It's all weird.
Yeah,
like I could market it better than they do, and I don't know anything about marketing.
See, I'd like to see that, but I'm so bad with anything marketing wise. So I probably would do worse, but well, maybe I wouldn't do worse. Maybe I do just as good as they are. But it's terrible. Every season I get in talks with people about all the rule changes, and every season I'm just like, if there's not enough action, players need to, 1, learn their fundamentals again for baseball. 2, MLB needs to market things better. And 3, they need to find a way to get more. It's hard to say primetime games because there's so many games that happen for baseball. It's not like football where there's only like 10 games a week. Where you could say this is baseball or football night, Monday night football, Sunday night football. You can't really do that with baseball because there's just so many more games. But maybe, and they do, if I'm not mistaken, they do Thursday night baseball, I think.
I think they do Sunday night baseball.
Or is it Sunday night baseball? I think they do at least one day. But the more you can push that out there onto like the ESPNs of the world, the CBSs and the NBC, like the small channels that people are probably going to be catching their sports stuff on, like the NFL and the other sports, I think they'd be better off. And I think that would be more helpful than all this fuckery that they're trying to do with the game of baseball.
Yeah. I do think it goes back to marketing. Jesus Christ.
Cat sounds like my cat.
I do think it goes back to the marketing of players, though, because, like, I love baseball, but I rarely watch games that aren't the Indians. Like, I don't really care, like, as opposed to football. When it's Sunday Night Football or Monday Night Football, like, if I'm not doing anything, I'll have it on.
Well, and I know a good portion of the players, even
well, I do too. But
the
like,
extra
I don't
players.
care about them.
Yeah, I would agree with you.
I don't care about the teams, or I don't know what it is exactly, but yeah, I rarely am gonna put on some primetime baseball game if it's not the Indians.
I don't see, as someone who watches baseball quite a bit, even I would say I'd be torn. If there was nothing else on and I'm just kind of hanging out, maybe cooking dinner or something, maybe I'd throw them on, but I don't know if I would watch them over anything else I would watch, to be honest.
Right.
But I'm also someone who watches a lot of highlights. I watch game recaps. I record games in some instances if the game is good enough I feel like to record.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know.
So, someone in chat just asked, do you think they should do like a player of the game for each? I would not be against that at all. I think that's 100% a great thing to do. Football does it, it's the quarterback. Basketball does it, it's usually the point guard. Unless there's another significantly better player on the team.
Yeah.
In the cases of like LeBron, it's just LeBron. He doesn't even have a team. He's his own team.
Right. That was always the joke when he was in Cleveland, is that we weren't the Cavs, we were the Cleveland LeBrons.
But I don't think it would be a bad idea for MLB to be like, hey, these are like on the main broadcast, like front and center when the game starts or before the game starts when they're starting to show it, be like, these are the guys you should be looking out for. I know they kind of talk about it, but they don't always show the players.
Well, they always do like the lineups. Like they show like the field and they go, here's your left field, center field, right field, here's your infielders. But they don't like highlight people. They're not like, this is the guy on this team that you should be watching and looking out every game for. Follow him.
Yeah. But I think if they did something like that, I think it would help. I don't think it could hurt.
Anything that would get players' names out there and more recognizable would be good. But they don't do that at all. Ever.
Not even a little bit.
They're really bad at it. So, I don't know.
Not even a little bit. I wish baseball was better, or MLB was better at promoting their players, because baseball in general, I feel like is the best sport of the big, is it 3?
Well, yeah.
You want to call
Depends
4?
If you want to include hockey or soccer.
No, I would definitely say big 4, because hockey is going to lead into something here in a second. Is there anything else you want to add on to the rule changes, or just final comments on pace of play? I think we've kind of exhausted quite a bit about that today.
Yeah, that's about all I got. I don't really have anything else to add to any of that. I'm for improving the amount of hits that happen, but not at the cost of changing baseball.
That is fair.
Basically the summary of today's podcast.
For me, I am just sum it up real quick. I think ball players should get back to their fundamentals, and I think the game and I think from a marketing perspective, if MLB is a little bit better, guys learn their fundamentals a little bit more. And who am I? I mean, I guess who am I to say that guy should learn his fundamentals? Like, I'm just sitting in my fucking room in my house where he's making millions of dollars hitting a baseball. But when you objectively look at it, if the fundamentals of baseball were a little bit better and the marketing was just a little bit better, I think baseball could go much farther than with these proposed rule changes and some of the ones that are in place. So, before we go, you said earlier that there is nothing like playoff baseball. I take that you've been to an Indians game during the playoffs? Or do you just enjoy watching it?
Well, I mean, both. I have been to Indians playoff games, and as recently as 2016 when they went to the World Series. But
okay, living in California and ticket prices for postseason games here for almost every sport besides hockey is unattainable by the average person. Because you're talking normal seats get to the $5,000, $6,000, $1,000 a ticket range.
Yeah.
I've never had the luxury of going to any playoff baseball games. But what I have done was I was able to score me and the wife tickets to Sharks NHL playoff hockey. And I'm going to have to tell Craze to go back and watch the end of this because he's going to love this. In my humble opinion, and it could be just the atmosphere in San Jose for the Sharks, there is nothing like playoff hockey in arena with all that noise, contained, literally nothing like it. I've never experienced anything like it.
To be fair, though, you said you've never done playoff baseball. So
fair.
Like,
I've never been.
I've been comparing playoff baseball on TV to hockey. There's a big difference.
No. So I've been to clinching games. I've been to big games for the regular season. I've just never been able to go to playoff games. I'm too broke, bro. I'm too broke.
Because, like, I went to, oh man, I can't, it might have been the 2016 season. The Indians set the MLB record for win streak. We won 23 in a row. And I was at the game where we broke the record, and it was fucking crazy. And that still was nothing compared to the playoff game I've been to.
Really? Maybe. Okay. So the next time the Giants make the playoffs,
I mean, it's expensive. Like,
I'll go. We'll figure it out.
Sports have been so miserable. Tickets to playoff sports in Cleveland were crazy expensive.
Oh, I bet.
But I found some that were like standing room only, and like back in the back of nowhere. And I was like, I'll fight my way up to where I can see it. It's fine.
Standing room only for Giants tickets in San Francisco go for usually about $500 to $600 a ticket.
That's about what these were listed as, but I got them a little less than that.
That's always killer. I don't know. So this is what's going to happen. I predicted the Giants were going to suck this year. They're going to make it to the playoffs, and then I'm going to be forced to, because I said next time the Giants go to the playoffs. So it looks like I'll be going to a playoff series this year, and then we'll revisit this. But up to this point, of all the sports experiences I've had, there was literally nothing like going to that Sharks game. Everybody was given wristbands that lit up, and like if you put it on, and if you looked around the arena on beat, like there was just something about it I had never experienced before. And it was incredible. And honestly, those tickets were pretty cheap.
Yeah. The Indians handed out like red towels and like crazy moments. Everyone would be waving the towel, and like the whole stadium, you just see like red spinning around. It was cool.
Yeah.
But I've also been, this is going to go off topic on a little bit of a tangent here, but it'll be quick. I was downtown when the Cavs won the championship, which is the first championship in Cleveland in,
what was it, like 50 years?
50 years roughly. And like Cleveland went nuts. So that I wasn't even at because that happened in San Francisco, but like
Yeah, you ain't gotta
downtown.
remind me, bro.
Oh, you guys won enough.
Fuck off. We should have won that series too. We should have three-peated. That should have been a
No,
three-peat.
no. But anyway,
We'll save off sports for another topic.
The downtown Cleveland area was so fucking crazy that like I didn't go home that night. Like I couldn't get out of the city.
That's
Like
funny.
it was just the whole city was a party. And like there was no destruction that I saw that I heard of. It was just everyone was so pumped that everyone was just walking around the streets like high-fiving, like everyone was just so excited. We couldn't handle it. I was downtown for the World Series Game 7 against the Cubs too, and that was the opposite.
Really?
Yeah, I mean we lost.
I mean, but see, I would imagine up until the loss though, like that would have been a crazier atmosphere.
During the game, like I was at the watch party right outside the gates.
Mm-hmm.
They set up like a giant big screen, and they had like another like 4,000 people, 5,000 people just standing there watching the TV outside the stadium.
That's insane.
Like, dude, Cleveland, everyone hates on Cleveland, and I get it because like we haven't won a lot, but like it's despite having terrible teams, we still sell out like every game for every sport. Like,
I mean, to be fair,
such a good sports town.
People don't hate on Cleveland because of how like it's a bad sports town. They hate on Cleveland because they just suck.
The teams are a joke.
Yeah,
or they were.
They were. Your Browns are looking pretty good.
Good off season for the Browns, but that's
definitely. We'll have to have
podcast.
An episode every once in a while where we go, because there's a lot I would love to talk about football, especially with the trade deadline happening and everything. But we'll save that for maybe Bases and Brews does football.
Exactly.
But I think I've said everything I need to about all of our stuff tonight.
All right. Yeah, I'm good. I'll send it out.
Cool. Thank you everyone again for watching or listening. If you're watching live on Twitch, TV/bases_and_brews, and go check out our YouTube for previous episodes if you haven't had a chance to watch them. If you're watching on YouTube or listening to podcast services, please feel free to come watch us live on Twitch every Friday, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. Everyone have a great week, and we'll catch you next week with another episode of Bases and Brews.
Later, everyone.